And now I'd like to open the meeting to the sharing of testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Jeremy.
I am grateful tonight for this church. There was a time when the absolute last thing I would ever want to do was go to church. I now know I only felt that way because I had never experienced what Plainfield has to offer. This church and the authentic Christian Science that is taught here has completely changed how I live my life. It is much easier to see now that God is in control and that every good thing comes from Him. Every week, the lessons give so much to ponder and pray about. The discussions and forum posts serve to expand upon all that I didn't understand. And these Wednesday meetings always have such wonderful readings, music, and testimonies to inspire and bless. Every week for the last 3 years, I've felt a little more certain, a little more right. The word I use when thinking about it is calibration. As the weeks go by, I can feel that calibration process moving my focus away from the collection of traits that I used to consider myself toward the idea that God has of me. This is not somewhere I was able to get on my own because I honestly tried. So I need to say how grateful I am for this church, for its members, for practitioner support, and for the blessing it is to be a part of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Donna from Oregon, go ahead.
I want to share with you how grateful I am to be part of the Plainfield Christian Science Church. It's such a wonderful place. I appreciate all the wonderful members, and I'm especially grateful for the practitioners and how helpful they are all the time.
And thank you. We're so glad to have you with us. Chardell from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Hello. Yesterday, the Plainfield calendar quote said, quote, "Joy and abundance are God bestowed and always available." This reminded me of a time when I had a tremendous amount of debt. I prayed deeply to have God show me how to solve this problem. I didn't overspend, and each month paid off what I could afford on my teacher's salary. While praying and paying, I never felt impatience, resentment, or anger. The prayer and calm were uppermost in my mind, not the debt. One day, many months later, the debts were all paid off. God saw me through this, and I am very, very grateful. Thank you, Plainfield, and thank you for the beautiful readings tonight.
Thank you. Linda from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Good evening. I too want to thank you for the beautiful readings and music tonight. I am very grateful for all the blessings that I have experienced since coming to Plainfield. One significant change is learning to do as God told Abraham, found in our lesson last week, quote, "Walk before me and be thou perfect," unquote. I loved how the Benson commentary summed it up. He said, quote, "To walk before God is to set Him always before us, and to think and speak and act in everything as those that are always under His eye. It is to have constant regard to His word as our rule, and to glory and His glory as our end in all our actions," unquote. Before coming to Plainfield, I had no sense of what it was really necessary to consecrate my life to God. By the grace of God and all the help here, I'm beginning to conquer the thinking and behavior that would keep me from obeying the voice of God within. Step by step, this has opened the way for healing in all areas of my life, and the many things that brought me to these doors. To name a few, there was financial needs filled, physical healings, relationships improved, and peace gained. We are continually reminded that God is the only creator. We are not the originator of anything. All we do and have is to the glory of God, not self or person. Before working intensively with a practitioner, Pretty much all of my behavior was running around asserting my personal will, trying to solve problems. I misunderstood what it was to live and work for God. It did not feel or look anything like I am finding here. I am learning how to get myself out of the way, cultivate humility, practice a listening sense, which requires a quiet attitude, and spending quality time with God and recognizing when I'm becoming willful. I'm getting to know God in my heart. As suggested here, I have found it helpful to have a personal covenant with God. I'm getting to know the biblical precepts of the Bible that have become a compass for my daily life. I am also grateful for the pure teaching in Mrs. Eddy's works given here, for it has lifted a veil that darkened my ability to understand her teachings for many years. I am deeply grateful to our merciful God and his faithful workers. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you. Craig.
Thank you. Thank you for those readings. God meets every need. I thank God every day for his daily bread. It seems it comes so often through the lesson sermon. I find so much strength in this results of the dedicated work of members here to just feel like food and strength and nutrition. The other day I woke up and I had a toothache. Well, I've been told before by a practitioner that my two teeth are rooting round and loved. So I started thinking about that, and that I should make sure I am loved, expression, and that I could receive love. And it helped, but I still had a toothache. My lesson was before me, and I was praying to God, what should I do? Because it was very distracting. It seemed like I had a lot of pressure in that area, and all of a sudden, after a few prayers, my tooth just started to bleed, and all the pressure went away, and all the pain went away, and I could read my lesson clearly and easily, and I could only thank God, and it has not returned. Just rinsed my mouth out and went about my business. He wanted me to be about something other than helping myself, I'm sure. And he allowed me that freedom, and I thank God for his church and that ability.
Thank you. Lil.
I'm grateful for a recent reminder of a wonderful proof of God's care. A while ago, driving to church one Sunday morning, I noticed one of my earrings had nearly fallen off, so I fixed it in the car when I arrived at church. After the service, I saw in a mirror that it was missing and looked all over church but never found it. It kept coming to my thought that nothing is lost in divine mind. Going to my car after the service, there it was, without the backing, in the parking lot next to my car. I just kept thanking God. 2 days later, I went to church to do a couple of things, and upon entering the back door and adjusting the doormat inside the door, I found the earring backing under the mat, which I had adjusted on Sunday morning. This was not luck. It was God completing the blessing and loving me so much. He never takes us halfway. This was more than a material blessing. It was a proof of God's love, and I am just so grateful. And thank you for those wonderful readings.
Thank you. Luann from New York, go ahead.
Thank you. The truths that were discussed in last Sunday's roundtable inspired me to re-give this testimony that I gave quite a while ago when I first came into Christian Science. It was a healing that I received from the abuse and trauma that I experienced in my childhood that has opened the way for me to learn so much more through Christian Science about God and to bring myself closer to God. I'd like to read that testimony again, please. Never in 22 years of mental health therapy did I ever entertain the idea that my abuse could be overcome or healed. I was given a diagnosis of complex post-traumatic stress disorder with associative identity disorder due to childhood mental, physical, and sexual abuse. When I was 29 years old, the treatment was to manage my symptoms, which had become quite a lengthy list all on their own. The therapy was called cognitive and consisted of talking to someone about the abuse and taking unknown amounts of medication, which I took privilege to abuse on a regular basis in an attempt to ease the mental agony of the memories and the lack of self-worth I was feeling. I had not even come close to the feet of the power that could help me to overcome and heal. Therapy served me well in helping me to realize I didn't have to be a victim. But who was I if not a victim? That is the catch. Rightfully so, they were trying to convince me of what I was not, but I was desperately seeking to find out who I really am. The only identity I knew was the one I was labeled with. I was a product of a very violently abusive alcoholic father, a submissive mother, and the victim of incest, enduring being locked in a basement for hours and beaten and tortured for many years. I walked around for years with that label stuck on my forehead, and my life reflected every bit of it. What I desperately wanted to know was, is God real, and why didn't he stop it? When I first came into Christian Science, my greatest joy was in finding out that God is very real, and he is not what I thought he was. He is a loving God with a great love that I could never imagine. I stopped going to therapy and no longer needed medication. Over the next year and a half, I began to learn more and more about God. I learned how to feel love. I learned to honestly forgive my abuser, which has brought me a tremendous amount of healing and a joy I could never have thought possible. I learned many valuable lessons from studying the Bible. I'm learning to overcome my fears and build my confidence. I no longer have the desire to die because I have found my worth in working for God. In Christian Science, I am learning the truth. I have a new label now. It says I am the daughter of the King. It is imprinted on my heart and is reflected in love. And yes, abuse can be overcome and most importantly healed. And I am so deeply grateful for it and for my practitioner. Thank you.
Thank you. Fairley from Maryland, go ahead.
Tonight, I would like to express my deep gratitude for the roundtable discussion that Plainfield offers every Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, just before the Sunday service. The teaching and learning that goes on is immeasurably useful and important to my spiritual growth. At the roundtable this past Sunday, our leader spoke about and quoted Mrs. Eddy with regard to the true significance that Christian Science and its proper demonstration hold for the world. Noting the decline of the established Christian Science church due to lack of understanding, viewing the science in terms of faith rather than understanding, Mrs. Eddy was quoted to the effect that if her students would live up to the teaching in the textbook, Christian Science would be the only universal religion by the end of the century. But if they did not live up to it, this planet would be destroyed by the year 2100. Mrs. Eddy was quoted as emphasizing that truth demands work, work, work. As stress was placed on the importance of our watches, I am unendingly grateful to be here at Plainfield, to be a member of this church that has changed my life, because I never understood Christian Science successfully until I came here, and has taken on a central role. This church has taken on the central role in Mrs. Eddy's legacy for the world. It gives true meaning to life, and I'm deeply grateful to be involved with true Christian Scientists at Plainfield and our members throughout this country, throughout the world. I am grateful to God, to my practitioner, and to all those who are at Plainfield. And thank you very much for the readings on our daily bread, the grace of God.
Thank you. This is Bruce. I'm very thankful for an article that's on our website. It's on the carousel on the front page, and it's called Independence by Mary Baker Eddy. In the article, it talks about that man has the right to think and do rightly, but no one has the right to do wrong. And you know, we talk about freedoms and our rights a lot, but together with that goes the responsibility to think and do right as best we see the light, but not otherwise. We don't have the right and freedom to do whatever we want without any regard to right and wrong. But I'm thankful for Christian Science because it has liberated me from many, many things which I desperately needed. And I'm thinking back at the beginning, I had some apparent needs of apparent lack, an uncertainty about things. And through Christian Science here in the Plainfield Church, I learned many things that helped me out of that problem. But the things that helped me most was when I knew that I had to be liberated from pride and ingratitude. And those were the little harder lessons to learn, but the harder the lesson, the greater the benefit. I'm endlessly thankful for a teacher we had in this church who was tough as nails, but unswervingly positioned with the right and not otherwise. And for me, it was immensely helpful because I've been liberated from very serious problems. Just being liberated to an extent from pride and ingratitude, which I had a very strong need for, has given me much more peace and joy and love in my life, which only could come from God. So I'm grateful for this kind of independence, independence from evil, independence from error. That is true freedom. Mike from New York, go ahead.
Thank you very much for another wonderful Wednesday night testimony meeting. I derive so much from these, so much from the testimonies, and if it wasn't for the individual and their wonderful humility and humbleness in testifying about how they are putting together their pottery shop, I don't think I can give this testimony. But out of gratitude towards God and Christian Science and Plainfield Church, I do have to give this testimony. I was teaching skiing. I found that the ski boots were like cement boots and did not help people in their skiing endeavors. So I tried to change that over the years, and now looking back, I know that came, the ideas I derived from my work to change things came from God. I tried sharing this with ski companies, ski schools, and people in the industry without any luck. And I was just riding along, but listening to the testimonies about the pottery shop really fascinated me. And about a month ago, I got this email from a person I'd known for many years, and essentially it was an invitation to come to a ski camp this June and work on ski boots for the United States Olympic mogul team. I was really quite overwhelmed by the whole endeavor and accepted it, even though I had to pay my own way and work for free. But it was so worthwhile. I got there, first day I'm watching these youngsters skiing and wondering what the heck am I doing here. But then I remembered that God had brought me there and I needed to just get to work and do what I needed to do, which I did. And I am so grateful for the teachings at Plainfield that it allowed me to do that. And I am so grateful for all that I'm learning. Grateful to God, Mary Baker Eddy, Christ Jesus, and Plainfield for all the good that has happened that I could never have done on my own.
Thank you. Dale from Virginia, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for the Bible study sessions that we have in this church. Even though I have studied the Bible lessons regularly my whole life, I've never learned or understood the background of the Bible stories and their great impact on history and our lives today. Through doing research to answer the questions that each volunteer proposes each week, it's amazing the truths that are revealed and the understanding that this brings. The church website, under Useful Links, provides great resources to find information, and I am so grateful for the worlds this is opening up. And even when there's not a Bible study, like a little bit this summer, I'm doing more searching and spending much more time with my Bible. Every day I think of the phrase, from sense to soul, and feel that we are on that journey here. Thank you so much for the readings this evening, for the music, and for all the wonderful testimonies.
Thank you. Day or Florence, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm grateful for all the healing work of this church. I've been experiencing some oral pain for the past few days that is similar to pain I was challenged with a few years ago. This week's roundtable discussion was a helpful reminder of the truth that I have no material past, which has helped me to fight the temptation to overanalyze or justify the pain. Tonight's readings reminded me that I should not be weary in well-doing, and this has helped me to realize that holding to the truth of my spiritual being while faced with this challenge is not an option, but an obligation, and that I'm not only working for myself, but for my fellow man. I'm grateful to be learning that there are no repeat experiences, and that every experience is an opportunity to demonstrate growth in science, with expectation of a sure victory. I'm already feeling much better than I did about 2 hours ago when I got home. And thank you so much for tonight's readings and all the testimonies.
Thank you. Gary.
In the old days of early Christianity, people went to church to be healed. And that was a common phenomenon in the early Christian churches for the first 300 years or so. And then the church became a political organization, and that phenomenon dwindled. And I thank God that Mary Baker Eddy resurrected that phenomenon Christ's Christianity, and I'm grateful that it still exists in the world, and I'm grateful that it is the basis of Christian Science in this church. Before church tonight, I had a pretty severe pain in my stomach. I passed it off as, well, this is Wednesday, this is opposition to the service, and drove to church and prayed, God, please help me. Was doing some reading tonight. I'm sure that was part of the opposition. And I'm grateful to say that this service has healed me. I am completely free of that. And I want to thank everybody who made this service tonight God's blessing.
Thank you. Carol.
There was a recent sign on our church sign, and it said, God's idea, man, is subject to good alone. I've been thinking about that ever since, and that has been so helpful to me. I'm not subject to anything but good, but God. There's no room for anything else, and God didn't make anything other than good. And I just was thinking too about how wonderful a thought that is to go out onto the community, onto the city and all the people that go by. It's such a simple but basic and full of truth and love. I'm just so very grateful for this church and for all that we have here, all the opportunities that we have to learn and to grow, and all the wonderful things that we have to read and be inspired by. I'm very grateful for practitioner help and all that I've had all these years, and so grateful for this church. Thank you.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to share one thing tonight, and it is this, that when slow healing seems to be occurring, I have learned to really look at what I'm holding in thought. One of the things is, am I saying I must get rid of this? This just has to improve. Second, am I believing in those past suggestions that have come? And third, am I doubting God's power? I've been reminded to really go back on this a few times this week and the past week, because it's written that there is really never a slow healing. God's goodness is right there. The realization of our perfection is right here. It's what I'm entertaining in my thinking often that makes this delay appear to be so. I just wanted to share that because God's promises are kept. He loves us all. His goodness is here for us all to realize any minute. And Mrs. Eddy makes reference to that in an instant we can have our relief. I'm so grateful for everything I've learned through Christian Science. Beautiful readings tonight to comfort us that we are daily given what we need. I'm so grateful for all the other testimonies, the hymns, and the whole service. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine. And where is Christine from? California. Go ahead. Okay, Christine, we don't hear you. Maybe you have your phone on mute where you are.
Okay, here I am. Can you hear me?
We got you now. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I would just like to express my gratitude for God leading me to the doorstep of Plainfield Church. I come from a Catholic background, and I, arrived full of self and guilt and shame and whatnot. And Plainfield has just been such a blessing to me and the practitioner that I work with daily for help. It's just been a wonderful experience, and I'm learning so much, and the roundtables and the Bible studies, oh my gosh, they're wonderful. I'm just learning so much. And I also wanted to say in this week's lesson, there's a promise from God in there that just really leaped out at me, and I'd like to read it. It's Isaiah 42:16. And I will bring the blind by a way that they know not. I will lead them in paths that they have not known. I will make darkness light before them, and crooked things straight. These things I will do unto them, and not forsake them. And that is just such a powerful scripture for me, that God is going to light my way. He's going to open my blind eyes. He's going to make straight the crooked path that I've walked, and not forsake me. And I'm learning to lean on God and not myself. And I just want to thank you, and thank you for all the testimonies this evening. They're very powerful. Each presentation, whether it's a roundtable Bible study or service, it's just extremely powerful, and it's dividing in my spirit, like the Word of God says. It divides the wrong from the right, the wheat from the tares, and it's definitely doing that in my life. And I wanna thank you.
Thank you. Mary.
I have a couple of things to read from our church website bulletin board, both from Pennsylvania. The first is, many of us worry about things of the body, and Bicknell Young says in his collected writings, quote, "Take care of your bodies as you would a piece of furniture, polish it and keep it clean, and then forget it," end quote. And then another from Pennsylvania, I want to express my gratitude for the forum on this website. The other day I came home after a demanding day. I needed to quiet my thought, and I was having difficulty concentrating. I went to Joseph's Corner on our website and played his piano solos as I read through the forum posts for the week. The ideas expressed on the forum turned my thoughts to God and brought peace. Many times I have been blessed by this weekly and dynamic church activity. Also, thank you, Joseph, for sharing your musical talent. I too am very grateful for the meeting tonight, the readings, the wonderful testimonies, and also the beautiful music. I thought in the beginning, the prelude, Jim played such a beautiful rendition of "O Gentle Presence." And I know every time all of us hear that music by Mrs. Eddy, it is just an overpowering sense of love for what she has done for us, giving us this science that have really saved our lives. As you hear tonight, all of us had one foot in the grave, and in learning about this God who loves us, we've been released from the bonds of captivity of the human mind. Last night in our watch message, we had another hymn by Mrs. Eddy, "Shepherd, Show Me How to Go," and in that hymn it says, "Feed the hungry, heal the heart." And that's what our services do. That's what every time we get together, that's what it is about, feeding the hungry and healing the heart. And I just thank God for it.
Thank you.